Support Name Explain on Patreon for ad-free videos, exclusive podcasts and blog posts, and to help choose what names get explained. Click the link in the description. Not all words in the English language are treated equally, it would seem. While many words are beloved by all and placed on a pedestal, others are left to rot away in the gutter. These are words that have been branded as ugly, unpleasant in their meaning and sound, and just flat out gross. It seems the word that gets brought up more often than most in the realm of hated words is, of course, moist. You may have just cringed at me saying it just then, and if so, then I apologise. However, I'm going to be saying an awful lot more in this video, so maybe click away now if you're not feeling too brave. The word moist seems to have been disliked for quite some time now. It's often tutted and cringed over and tends to be the butt of word-based jokes on the World Wide Web. More often than not, it's the go-to hated word. While I'm sure moist has been hated for decades upon decades, it seems one of the earliest references to moist being a gross word online comes from a 2009 article written by Ben Zimmer for the Visual Thesaurus. It was an article dubbed Words We Love and Hate and included words like grace and serendipity for beloved words and slacks and ointment for hated words. Even here in 2009, moist stands above the rest as a really disliked word. There's even a reference to a Facebook group called I Hate the Word Moist in this 2009 article, which seems to not actually exist anymore, however. The Friends of Name Explain Facebook group does still exist, however, and is a great place to hang out with myself and other name nerds and talk all things etymology and language. Sorry, I couldn't say no to that perfect segue and plug opportunity. Link down below. Anyway, that was in 2009. It seems moist's online hatred carried on building and came to a crescendo in 2012. It was in this world-ending year that BuzzFeed released an article dubbed Why Moist is the Worst Word Ever, which has been shared over 4 million times. It was also in 2012 that The New Yorker ran a social media campaign asking its followers which word should be erased from the English language. Moist, unsurprisingly, won by a landslide. 2012 seems like the time I kind of remember moist really rising up the ranks of disliked words. It was around this year where internet culture really started to hit the mainstream. Memes were evolving and platforms like YouTube and Twitter were becoming huge. It was a wild time online and you just had to be there. I really feel that this online evolution really brought the word moist into this cold, harsh light of day, and it's truly where its image as a gross, unloved word became cemented. But is that entirely fair? Does moist get too bad of a rap online? Like, is it truly an unpleasant word, or is it just a bit misunderstood? What exactly about the word moist makes moist such a hated word? Well, before we understand that, I want to take a quick look into the word's history. Ultimately, of course, you have to understand where this word came from in the first place. It seems to be a word we aren't sure exactly about in regards to its etymology. However, the most popular idea is that it derives from something called Vulgar Latin, which was the Latin spoken by the further western reaches of the Roman Empire by the less educated. Some feel these Vulgar Latin dialects ultimately became the Western Romance languages of Europe we have today. It's thought moist may have come from the Vulgar Latin musidius, meaning mouldy/wet. This came from the regular Latin mucidus, meaning things like slimy and musty. This is ultimately where we got the word of mucus from too, another not too loved word. It seems fitting that a word as gross as moist comes from something called Vulgar Latin. The OED's main definition for the word moist is as an adjective, being defined as slightly wet, imbued with moisture, containing liquid in a state of suspension or absorption, not dry, damp, humid, which is a definition I'm sure we will all agree upon. One of the OED's earliest usages of the word moist in the English language comes from 1382. Here it was spelled as moist, however. Over the years, other spellings appeared like moister and most. The current spelling seems to have been settled upon, however, in 1611. It's definitely an incredibly old word, that's for sure. I'm sure that for most of its life, moist was a pretty unassuming word. I have no doubts that people disliked it, but back in 1611, there wasn't really an easy way for all these people who disliked the word to share the dislike with one another and the wider world. So moist must have remained an unfavoured word in small, unconnected pockets of society. Once the World Wide Web, however, became a thing, these moist haters could finally come together and finally realise that they are not alone in this world in the displeasure the word brought them. The internet gave rise to this communal hatred towards the word moist we still see to this day. It seems that this collective collective hatred the internet had for the word piqued the interest of one Paul Thibodeau, a cognitive psychologist from Oberlin College in the state of Ohio. In 2016, he led a series of experiments trying to figure out why exactly people hated the word moist so much. This study into the word moist seems to have been part of a larger look into word aversion in general. Word aversion is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Words we are averse to hearing, reading, or writing. Linguistics professor Mark Lieberman from the University of Pennsylvania defined it pretty well as a feeling of intense, irrational distaste for the sound or sight of a particular word or phrase, not because its use is regarded as etymologically or logically or grammatically wrong, nor because it's felt to be overused or redundant or trendy or non-standard, but simply because the word itself somehow feels unpleasant or even disgusting. While other words really fall into the category of word aversion, it seems moist has very much become the poster child for this phenomenon. It's hard to Google word aversion and not have moist come up. The aforementioned Paul Thibodeau wanted to test 3 reasons why he felt we became averse to certain words, with a central focus being on the word moist. He came up with 3 theories as to why people may be averse to words. These 3 ideas were due to the sound of a word, the connotations of a word, or how society as a collective had perceived the word, and he applied these 3 ideas to the word moist. Let's start by looking into the sound of the word moist. How words sound have historically played a large role in the way we perceive certain words. Various sounds have connotations to them. Just look into the booba kiki effect and you'll understand this for yourself completely. The phonology of words and the connotations that come along with them could really have a video unto themselves. I won't talk about it too much here, however, as the way in which the word moist sounds doesn't appear to play that large a role into why it's so hated. Paul Thibodeau came to this conclusion in his experiments, as many other words that sound like moist don't seem to be as hated. Take words like hoist, voiced, and rejoiced. These are words that sound very similar to moist, yet don't give people that same cringy feeling that they get from moist, though that can just be the majority. I'm sure there are people out there who quiver at the word hoist. We can conclude from this that the hatred moist has accumulated has very little to do with the way it sounds. What seems to have played a much larger role, however, is the connotations we have with the word moist. While moist can be used to describe a lot of things, it seems to have carved a rather unpleasant niche for itself as a word to describe the human body, bodily fluids, and especially the reproductive process. Describing anything sexual as moist is deemed by the majority as a real mood killer. It was this part of his experiments that Paul Thibodeau found some very interesting results. As part of his experiment, a group of subjects watched traditionally attractive people say the word moist in a variety of ways. Subjects came to the conclusion that even seeing these hunks say the word moist was a massive turn-off. Moist isn't alone in all this, however. Many other bodily fluid words rank highly in the world of word evasion. Take the likes of phlegm, mucus, vomit, pus, and diarrhea in example. All of these are gross, liquid-based things that a body are capable of producing. While they are nouns, the adjective of moist could easily apply to all of them. Other words that don't directly link to body fluids but relate to the procreation system rank highly in word evasion too, especially words linked to the female reproductive system. Words like flaccid, yeast, flaps, fetus, crevice, and giblets are all seen as unliked words, and they are being linked with the reproduction system either correctly or via slang. Even other wet words are seen as being gross, like damp, discharge, smear, and gushing. Moist is just a word that ticks all the boxes of relating to wetness, bodily fluids, and reproduction. And while these things are great, they are also seen as being pretty gross too. Moist's connotation to things like this and its unflattering sexual image is a key reason as to why it's so hated. Interestingly though, outside of the world of bodily fluids and procreation, moist isn't as hated. Another group of subjects in these experiments watched videos of cakes being described as moist, and this group of people came out of the experiment not hating the word moist anywhere near as much. It seems that in the world of bacon and cakes, moist really isn't frowned upon. However, even outside of the world of fornication and bodily fluids, moist can still be seen as gross. One article about the word, written by Sophia Bernazzani, starts with, "When I hear or read the word moist, I immediately think of the locker room at the public pool where I learnt how to swim, when I was a kid. It smelled like mildew and frogs, the walls were coated in grime and hair, and it was always at least 80 degrees in there, even in the winter. It truly was a moist locker room. While this example somewhat relates to the human body, it's not directly about fluids or making babies. It seems that us humans aren't on the whole too fond of being slightly wet. Most of us are more than happy to swim or be submerged in water in a bath or shower, but when it comes to being slightly wet, we aren't that happy about it. Moist is the perfect word to describe the uncomfortable feeling of being wet when we don't really want to be wet. And once again, this connotation is a key reason as to why so many of us hate the word. Then we have the last area in which Paul Fieberthal wanted to look into with moist and word aversion, that being how words are affected by how society as a whole perceive them. This turned out to be a key reason as to why so many people hate the word moist. As mentioned, moist hating really started to pick up in 2012, and from there, something of a snowball effect has happened with the word. Hating moist has gained so much traction that as hatred has become something the word is best known for. Many people may have come to the conclusion that they hate the word moist simply because they've heard so many other people say they hate the word moist. Hating the word moist is almost like a meme at this point. It kind of reminds you of the whole Comic Sans fiasco, in which many people dislike that font simply because other people online were saying they dislike it. Bandwagons and how things are perceived by others can play a huge role in what we believe, and it seems that the moist hating bandwagon has only gotten bigger and bigger. Many people may hate the word moist simply because it has become the socially correct thing to do. I guess we have to ask ourselves, what exactly do we do about this issue? Do we just stop using the word moist altogether and find other words instead? Well, as mentioned, its synonyms and fellow wet words like damp and clammy aren't that beloved either. We're always going to need a word to describe things that are slightly wet, and moist fills that need, despite how irksome it has become. Besides, while people may hate the word, it's not actually a swear word or an offensive term which takes aim at a specific group of people. I don't imagine YouTube will demonetize me for saying moist too much. It seems like moist might have to just stay around for the time being, as that word we all love to hate. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Patreon is vital to Name Explain, and donating just $2 a month allows you to enjoy ad-free videos and bonus Patreon exclusive content. It also allows you to help choose what names get explained in upcoming videos, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you so much for all the support you guys give Name Explain. Thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explain. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT, and also join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain, both of which will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.